In his diary, Victor Klemperer recalls talking to German soldiers after the news of Germany's defeat and Hitler's death, and how even then they believed the Führer was not to blame, leading Klemperer to editorialize, quote, "Still the belief in Hitler. He undoubtedly had a religious effect." Unquote. There's a question that keeps nagging me, and that is, how did the Nazi regime transform and control German society to the point that millions of Jews and other groups of people could be exterminated while the vast majority of the German people did or said nothing? So I looked for dissertations that dealt with Nazi propaganda and control, as well as ones on German society and popular thinking before and during World War II. The first is entitled, "In Spite of All That, Total War and Popular Opinion in Nazi Germany 1943 to 1945 by Alexandra Lohse. Lohse's purpose is to examine the values and beliefs of ordinary Germans during wartime, quote unquote. She posits that the war actually made both the German soldiers and civilians more committed to Hitler and German victory, even while they saw the disintegration of the Third Reich around them. She uses 78 secondary sources, which are primarily books and scholarly articles, and 8 primary sources. A good majority of the sources are in German. She also uses over a dozen archival sources from both the US and UK National Archives. She stated that she wanted to see how ordinary Germans thought. So the sources that she used involved transcripts secretly recorded by British intelligence of newly captured German POWs. She also examines letters to and from the front between soldiers and their families at home. Then, through the body of her dissertation, she examines chronologically what these people said and what their attitudes were and how they changed as the war came to an Allied victory. Her conclusion is that the German people bought into the hope that Hitler promised of a revived, strong, and prosperous Germany. When it seemed like that would become a reality in the late 1930s, people were willing to go along with or turn a blind eye to whatever the Nazis were doing. So even when things started going bad in Germany in 1943, they still felt that Hitler could deliver on his promises and defeat their enemies and make Germany greater than ever, in spite of all they saw and experienced, as she titled her paper. The second dissertation is entitled Envisioning the Fascist Reality, Ideology in the Children's Literature of Hitler's Germany and Franco's Spain by Follmer. Follmer's purpose was to examine the intent and methodology of the propagandists who wrote children's literature in these two fascist regimes. He says, quote, "In this study, I will identify the process by which writers attempt to instill belief in their audience," unquote. He uses 126 sources that included books and scholarly articles, but of special note are the actual books written for children by those seeking to indoctrinate them. His methodology is to compare and contrast children's literature under the Weimar Republic and then under the Third Reich. His conclusion is that fascist children's writing presents the world as a place of absolute good versus absolute evil, with the absolute good being the viewpoint of the regime in power, and the absolute evil being anything that does not line up with the party line. The heroes of these stories come to the point of crisis where they choose to follow Hitler above any allegiance to family or religion. The whole purpose being to look to Hitler for salvation and to the Nazi Party as their source of morality. I found the examination of both these dissertations to be extremely helpful in getting me to think about where mine will go and how I'll get there. Thanks.